How we doing? It's FT Live. We got a good guest list coming up today. More on that in just a sec. Scotty Braun, Todd Frazier, Erik Kratz. Todd, Father, good to see you, man. And I wanted to get you in on this combo we had from yesterday since you weren't with us. So, as we all know, not only are there no signings in the past few days, there are no rumors, which really means it's quiet on the front. So, Kratz and Przinsky talked yesterday about what it's like to sit at home a month away and how it is to deal with the fam and the friends and the agent and the anxiousness that for some people turns into desperation deals. You are a pretty active dude. You don't like to sit still. I think most people would say that, right? You're freaking ball of energy. So how would you be in a situation like this? If you're a stud, right? Or not, I guess, whatever, wherever you are in your career, how would you be a few weeks out of spring training right now? What would you be doing and saying?
Well, funny you bring that up. I've been a part of this whole scenario before where you're sitting back like, oh, I thought this team wanted me. Well, why don't you make this call? Like, I was on my agent's ass every day. My wife's on me like, hey, what's going on? You know, like it's normal. It's natural. You're trying to find a job. You might be out of a job. And then you're thinking 2-3 months ago, like, yo, this is going to be easy peasy. No, man, this isn't easy peasy anymore, man. It's not like back in the early 2000s and the 90s, you know, people were signing left and right. They just said, here's a check, go. I mean, honestly, free agency stinks. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. And I remember exactly calling my agent and, you know, sometimes he wouldn't answer. I'd call him again, you know, 4 or 5 hours later. I said, what do we got? Oh man, nothing really brewing. Bullshit. Call somebody else. Like it was getting like that. So it was a little anger, a little frustration, a little jealousy, everybody else making it. You know, let's be real. Everything comes out of the pot because you want to be on a squad and you want to be wanted. You know, that's all you want to do. And then eventually when you do sign, it's like, what the hell did I do wrong? You know, I've been myself this whole time. So it's very frustrating.
You're muted.
Hey, Scotty, what happened to you, big dog?
Oh, man, I was muted. Sorry, my bad. Kratz, okay. I was just saying, I like that. I can imagine the call from Todd Father would be really entertaining in that situation.
Some were fun, some weren't. Like, you know, it's your livelihood, bro. You got to take control of that. I used to tell him, I was like, hey, listen, give me the guy's number. Like, let me call him. Let me make a deal myself. Like, what else do I have to do here? Like there was, you know, let me bite the bullet. And you look back, you're like, man, maybe I should have did this. Maybe I should have that. And it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah. What was the latest? What was the latest that you ever went into the offseason without a job or without like an offer? Because I'm sure there was like minor league offers coming in. And they were like, hey, bro, you want a minor league? And you're like, piss off.
Yeah, no, it was what was it? It was in February. I forget what day exactly. It could have been like February 8th or 9th range, if I remember. But yeah, it was really late. Really late.
That's
Yeah.
brutal.
All right, well, we'll keep everyone posted on that front. So in the meantime, on the news action, our friends at Baseball America have their 35th top 100 prospect list released. Let's charge the damn mound and take a look at what that list entails. And it's the Jackson 2. Holiday is 1. Jackson Churio is number 2. Jackson Churio doesn't have to have any money conversations for quite a while. He's not going to be free agent for like a decade, but he's already rich, so that's cool. You can see some of the others on this list, some other notable names. Of course, Junior Caminero called up towards the end of last season with Tampa Bay. Evan Carter, never heard of him. It'd be cool maybe one day if he gets to win a World Series or something. I hope for the best for him. Wyatt Langford, that's sarcasm for anyone that gets pissed off if they're like listening to the pod and can't see my face.
Yeah.
But Wyatt Langford's going to be a big deal, I think, this year for the Rangers. Dylan Cruz, same thing, should be up for the Nats this year. Jordan Lawler's gotten some time already. He's been an FT guest, so we love him. Ethan Salas is a stud catcher in the Padres system. Paul Skeens of the Pittsburgh Pirates cracking the top 10, of course, as well. And I might butcher this name, Samuel Basayo for the Baltimore Orioles. Yes, Orioles fans, wait, there's more. So, Kratz, what do you think about this top 10 list?
I mean, I think it's great. I think we kind of lean on Baseball America to do their homework. They do extensive stuff. They have their scouts that they talk to. They have, they put their own eyes on. Now they have analytics. To me, this is the part of baseball that will grow the game ridiculously. It will give so much value to the game because you based on what the NFL gets. Does the NFL do a great job on its own? Yes. The NFL would not be what it is without the way that NCAA football is run, televised, all that stuff. So if we can somehow build this up, 35th top 100 prospect list, like we need to build these guys up. Teams need to see it. They need to hear more about your Wyatt Langfords. They need to hear more about everything that your team has or doesn't have in the minor leagues to be able to build the excitement for what's coming. Because this is what the teams value. This is poor Paul Skeens. If Paul Skeens was Japanese right now, he would be making over $200 million. But he went to LSU. He didn't go to Tokyo University and get an opportunity to come out like Yamamoto is coming out of the MPB. But you sit here and you look at this list. This is the future of the game, and we need to sell it more than we are as an industry.
Do you have ideas for that? Go ahead, Top Father.
No, I want him to finish his point there, and then I'll go. I'll just go. I mean,
yeah.
Top 10 prospects. I'm just looking at the list, and I'm like, Evan Carter. Once they make it, aren't they done being prospects or no?
No.
130 at bats. 130 at bats.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's something I just learned. I appreciate that. So I'm just like, I'm looking for Leiter on there. I know Leiter had a tough first year, but then he kind of bounced back. There's some like underlying guys that we haven't even brought up that could crack that list as well. So it's like, yeah, I want to know more about these dudes. I want to get to know them more. Let's find a way to get these guys known and out there for the public. Like, hey man, why is this guy waiting in the shadows? He should be brought up. This is the dude right now. So I don't know what we could do with that, Eric. I don't know if you've had any ideas or thought about it, but I'm sure we could think of something. Like make it a little bit, make it instead of just putting it out there, like make it like a big deal on TV or something. I don't know, something to make it fun for everybody.
So we're a regional network. We're a regional sport. That's confirmed. You're watching. Orioles are a bad example. You're watching your Royals and Cardinals if you live in the Midwest. Now we've moved a lot of these AAA, AA teams as close as possible. Minnesota would be a great example. Mm-hmm. Their AAA team is in St. Paul. They used to have an independent team that had no affiliation with any team, definitely not the Twins. Now it's their AAA team. We have the resources. We, as in MLB, has the resources to be able to kick back to some of these teams. Now you need, as a Minnesota Twins regional network, You need to be able to show these games. You need to be able to show them, but not in the grainy iPhone footage that some of these teams are getting. The minor league teams are, all their games are on TV already. Use that structure, but with a little bit of a regional sports network feel, in the sense that you have a pregame show, you have interviews. I get it. The minor league guys, they'll have to play, 4:00 games on a Saturday. They'll have to play a little bit of a different schedule. But now these guys when they come up. And I don't think it needs to be just AAA, because all these teams are decently close to their big league team. That regional network can have that easy communication, not back and forth. You can't do the same crew doing that game as you do the big league game. I'm not saying that, but you have that connection and you can really sell it. Now when Evan Carter gets called up, dude, I went to go see him over at Round Rock or wherever Texas's AAA is. When Edwin Julian gets called up for the Twins. Oh, I remember watching him over at St. Paul. It was cold early in the year. He did this. He signed a ball for me. He connected. And I watched his games every Saturday because they played the spotlight game. To me, that's the thing that we need to look into for these billion-dollar companies and these billion-dollar contracts for regional networks. Feed some into that and create a new avenue for seeing your team and seeing your future.
I will say this. I can give you a story on a team by team.
You're muted there, Scotty.
No, I'm not.
Oh, he's good.
I'm not muted.
Now we got nothing. It's yours. It's you and me, Todd.
I got Scotty. I hear him.
Yeah,
he's good.
Kratz, I'm here.
Now everybody's muted.
Oh, that's for Kratz.
Forget. We don't need him.
All right,
anymore.
bye, Kratz. So I'll add to this while we figure out Kratz's situation, because he can't hear us right now.
Yeah.
So Todd Father, when I interviewed, because I've spoken to some teams over the years about play-by-play jobs, right, to be their team play-by-play. So when I interviewed with the Marlins for their play-by-play job, maybe 6 years ago or something, and they were terrible. And then they were terrible for several years after that. Obviously, they were much better this past season. That was actually a big part of the conversation. In the interview, they asked me about my prospect knowledge, and it was almost like a PR pitch. Hey, we're going to be terrible this year. I mean, I'm going to say it in my language, right? They didn't quite phrase it that way, but they're like, so how do you plan on selling Marlins baseball to our fan base? And I do think teams like the Marlins, the Pirates, the A's at times, especially on the broadcast side, because they do a great job, they have that in mind, probably more so than the bigger teams in terms of their broadcast. Because think about it. Their broadcast can't just talk all day about the current team and their playoff chances, especially once you get halfway through the season and those teams are out of it. So I think they actually specialize in really doing their best to educate people. And sometimes they'll do a content series on like prospect of the week or whatever it is. There are a lot of things that they'll throw out there on their TV broadcast, on their website and digital content. So I do think they did a pretty nice job. Yeah, it's different from a sport perspective. And I agree. We definitely should have some big ass show and release everything. And maybe we can work on something like that in the future. But the crappier teams are well versed in this, because it's marketing and they need to sell what's coming, because what's there is usually not good and the wintertime is usually completely quiet for them. So we spoke a lot about that. I'm like, obviously I understand what the deal is and we can talk prospects all day. I love to do that. So I do think the crappier teams, the cheaper teams, have gripped that pretty tightly and are doing a good job in that department, or at least a better job in that department. You know what I'm saying? Like you had a minute with the Pirates, like, they're talking about the future. I mean, eventually, hopefully they'll be a playoff team again and they don't have to do that all the time. But for the most part, you got halfway through the season, they're like, hey, we drafted Paul Skeens. Like, let's talk about Paul Skeens a couple times a week. And they should.
No, I agree. And I think the tough part is for baseball is there's so many athletes. There's so many ball players. And it's like, all right, yeah, we want to pinpoint, a couple guys. But at the same time, it's like, it's an overload of baseball players, and that's the nature of the beast, which is great. A lot of guys get a lot of opportunities, but if we're just trying to pinpoint the top 100, okay, I get that. But there's also these underlying guys that are really good ball players too as well that you want to get to talk about too. But yeah, I think, Eric brought up a good point, putting him on TV a little more, especially in that region. I think that is an easy fix there. I think that would be pretty simple. So, um, they do it at the major league ballparks too as well. Like in between innings, they'll put a video up of, who's doing good at the farm or something like that, and they'll bring a guy up, and it makes people talk a little bit. But yeah, there could be more stuff that they do.
I don't know if you guys hit on it while I was muting myself and ruining the show, but to me, this list, the bottom half of the list here, Kansas City, we talked about all that they've done, the years that they've lost since essentially 2016, they've been losing, and they have 0 players in the top 100. Angels, Astros, that's surprising, but we heard about it. The Diamondbacks, the Angels, for me, yes, they have 1, but just like we said yesterday, Reed Detmers, when we were talking to Reed Detmers, shoot, they had Shanwell, Neto, Detmers, Matt Joyce, Silseth, and Bachman, all big leaguers who have been drafted since 2021. So they're moving their guys out of the system. It's like, well, if you're good, you're ready to go. So that's different. But for me, Kansas City, man, you have 0 in the top 100, and your team wasn't very good. I know they were young. They were young up there. Maybe MJ Melendez, or I guess Vinny's a little bit older, but some of those guys would have still been top 100 had they stayed in the minor leagues, but that's not a good look. So it's good that KC's buying some players to come in.
Yeah, the Royals are quite a disappointment on that front. I mean, it's been a lot of years of pain. And yeah, there are some exciting young players on that team, on the big league roster. But yeah, when you don't have a guy cracking the top 100 and you're picking towards the top of the draft, and also people should keep this in mind too, it's not just picking at the top of the draft or towards the top of the draft. The more picks you have and the higher those picks are, the more money that you have to spend within the draft. That's how it works. So even if you pick a player that might not be the best player at that spot, you might be saving some money for later on in the round. So
and last thing I'll just add to finish is, they got, if that's the case, they have 0 prospects, so they have nobody ready to come up, right? Does that make any sense?
They have guys ready to come up. They're just
no, but I'm saying like nobody.
Premier.
It's like, oh, we'll bring him up, but he'll get pushed back down once this guy's available. You want guys to come up and stay. So
yeah,
hopefully that's not the case.
Mm-hmm. Hey, on that front, I mean, we've got number 2 on the list, Jackson Churio. Let's bring in Corbin Burnes right now, our first guest of the day on FT Live. Always great to see you, Corbin. Let's start there, dude. The BA top 100 list just came out. It's funny, by far the richest dude on that list is a Milwaukee Brewer in Jackson Churio. So what do you know about him, and are you excited to play with him this year?
Yeah, so I actually don't know a ton about him. Obviously, he's come over the last couple of years from minor league camp and filled in some innings on the big league side. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of excitement in the organization about him. Great player, has flown through the system. I don't know if he's 20 years old yet, which is crazy to think about where I was at when I was 19 years old. I was my second year of college and was no way near good enough to play in the big league. So the fact that he's as advanced as he is exciting, and I'll get a better look at him, get to know him more when spring training starts in, a little over a month.
Well, your manager said he's not good enough to play in the big leagues yet either, because he said he's still going to be number 94 in spring training, and he's got to earn number 11 at some point. You think that's fair? You think that's fair? You think a guy that gets that money, we're not talking about like somebody that signed like a $20 or $25 million deal. Somebody that gets this money. Do you feel like as a guy in your last season with the Brewers, you're like, hey, if we gave this guy money, let's go. Let's bring this dude up and start whacking.
I definitely think it's fair. I don't think just because you sign a big number, prospect evaluators love you. I don't think that guarantees you a spot in the big leagues. I think you got to come out and you got to show you're ready. You got to show you're mature enough to play in the big leagues. I think the big leagues will humble you pretty quickly if you get thrown into the action without being prepared for it. Murph's been around the game for a long time. He's coached in the college ranks for a long time, so I think he knows when a guy's going to be ready for the big leagues. And I've had conversations actually with Murph about it, and what he's thinking there. And He's like, yeah, obviously the organization loves him, but as far as he's concerned, he's got to go out and prove his spot and prove his worth on the team. And if he comes into camp prepared, ready to go, firing all cylinders, and is going to really improve the team, then I think he's going to be in the big leagues. But obviously, there's still a lot of unknowns there. But obviously, the organization loves him to give him $80 million, so he's got to be pretty good.
As the dude on this team, you and Yelly are kind of pitching and position player dudes. What do you need to see from him? What do you need to see from this guy that you're like, okay, beginning of camp, I see this. He's adapted to this, or he sucks at this. What do you need to see?
I think to gel in the clubhouse is probably the best thing. You come in, you don't want to be the selfish guy. Everyone knows you're going to make $80 million, so don't come in and act like you're better than everyone, because really you're 19, 20 years old and you still have a lot to prove. So coming in, showing the willingness to learn. Yelly's going to be a great guy to be right there with him in the outfield, taking him through reps, hitting in the cages. I'm sure they'll pair him up with Yelly and some of the older guys in the clubhouse. But just show you're willing to learn, show you're there to win baseball games. You're there to compete for the team. And that's really it. I think that's kind of what you expect out of most guys. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of young guys competing for spots in camp this year. So I think that'd probably be the message to a lot of the guys, whether it's him, Black. There's some young pitchers we have, just guys that are wanting to make the team. Just come out and show you're willing to be a team guy, work your butt off, and do whatever you can to help the team win.
Corbin, first off, congrats on the arbitration deal, 15.637. I don't know where you got those final three numbers from, but that's
500. Don't forget the 500.
That's
the craziest number ever, Burnsy.
I'll be honest with you. You don't see a number like that. I mean, you must have had one less walk, and they're like, all right, we'll just give them the 37.5. Forget about it.
Yeah, that number came from a previous pitcher that was third-time ARB eligible that we were kind of shooting for last year. That we kind of got back to that level this year.
Nice. Yeah. And what people don't understand, when you do ARB, you go back and look at what other people have done, what you've done as well. It's not especially what you're going to do in the future. So that's really interesting. I want to talk about it's funny, just the number. I want to talk about bullpen sessions, man. I know you're big on bullpen sessions. Is there like something specific you do every time you go to bullpen session? Can you explain, to everybody, if there's something that, you do that most people wouldn't understand?
Yeah, so I'm actually a little bit different when it comes to bullpens. Right now I'm thrown off the mound every day. There isn't a day that I play catch that I'm not on the mound. For me, in the off season, early in spring, getting off the mound as much as I can just to get comfortable. With the spikes in the dirt again, seeing a catcher back there, getting a hitter to stand in. For me, it's just getting comfortable again. Then once I get comfortable again, it's going through everything. It's not a ton of pitches. It's up there for 12 to 15. Get a touch. You're not going to get up there and throw up huge velos and get game-like spin action. So as long as you have a good feel of something, and I get on and get off. But usually, probably a month or two into the season, I'll stop throwing bullpens on a mound. For me, it's just flat ground work. It's getting the work in, getting that good feel, just knowing that I don't want to chase something in a bullpen. I don't want to chase a spin that when you get the adrenaline and game action, it's going to have a different shape to it. So for me, a lot of it's feel. A lot of it, once I get comfortable with my legs, with the timing of my hands and stuff, I'll stop throwing bullpens in season and just get the work in, get out, and try not to chase something in those bullpen sessions.
I got one on that. I got a question on that. But first, I got to know, who was the comp? Who did you compare yourself to?
So that number is Jake Arrieta's number from, 2017, 2018.
Shoot, you are way better looking than Jake Arrieta. I would not have used that as a comp. But let's get back to the your bullpens here. At the end of my career, I would say probably the last 5 or 6 years, they started bringing TrackMan into, or Rapsodo into the bullpen, and I even into BP. So guys would have it in BP. I felt like, and at that point I had established, my routine, whether it was good or it was bad, it was my routine. I felt like young guys that were out there in their bullpens with the TrackMan out there, the Rapsodo, it was like, oh man, this is kind of like a tryout. Like I got to make sure I get my since you don't really use it or you don't really utilize bullpens as much, do you use TrackMan at some point or Rapsodo? And is that good or bad for young guys? Because it's kind of like a constant barometer, like, oh, you only threw that 186. Are you okay?
So I'll use TrackMan and all the analytics early in camp, spring training, bullpens, kind of at the end of the off season. My son's trying to come in here. Easy, Bubba. So basically, the TrackMan is the kind of indicator of kind of how I'm progressing through spring training. But then once season starts, I don't use TrackMan and bullpens. Again, I don't want to chase the numbers. I don't want to chase the spin rates. I'll look at TrackMan post outing just to kind of see how they compare throughout the season. If we see, hey, something spin directions off on a curveball or a slider, is something I can work on in catch play between outings. But that's one of the things I do talk to a lot of young guys about is caution using the analytics, the TrackMan, the Rapsodo, whatever it may be, in bullpen sessions, because your adrenaline is not the same. The intensity is not the same. So if you're trying to chase something, to say the shape of the slider, the spin rate of the slider, and you start doing some funky stuff in the bullpen, it's not going to translate to the game because all of a sudden you get a different adrenaline, different intensity. So I use it more as a tool as I'm getting ready at the end of an off season into spring training, just to kind of see my baselines, see where they're at, make sure they're on track, make sure I don't need to change anything mechanically. And then once the season starts, it's just looking at them, every 2 to 3 outings just to make sure we're kind of on par with the rest of the season.
So I'm kind of nerding out here, but do you think there's a future where we're using the in-game TrackMan data in the sense of like his spin to analyze whether a pitcher should come out of a game? Because we talk about this all the time, and you're already past that threshold, but we talk about how pitchers are evaluated to be taken out of games. Do you think in the future, a guy that's about to break into the big leagues right now, a Paul Skeens, could be seen by an organization like the Pirates who says, as soon as your RPMs hit 2,600, we're going to bring, although he's a lower spin rate guy. So as soon as they start ticking in one direction or another, boom, we're getting somebody up in the bullpen.
Yeah, I think so. I think honestly, I think we're there. I know there's a lot of stuff that the Brewers, pitching coaches, staff look at in game as far as pitch shape, velocity, that kind of thing. That you might be like, hey, your sliders got a little bit different shape today. How's it feeling? Do we need to lean on more curveballs? So it's definitely there as far as looking at pitch shape in game. Are we close to, like you say, RPMs, velocity determining when a guy gets taken out? Probably. We're probably pretty close to that, especially for the young guys that they're trying to protect, get the most value out of them in 5 or 6 innings and get them out of there. But as far as I'm concerned, if I've talked to Hookie, our pitching coach, about it, like, hey, just like my bullpens, I don't want the TrackMan up in game. I don't want to hear about slider shape. For me, if I'm getting outs, let's keep rolling. If I'm not getting outs, then we're not throwing the right pitches. So let's make an adjustment. So I skew to stay away from the analytics once the season starts, but it's definitely becoming more and more prevalent in the game.
I love that, because I remember when I used to play, they used to give me, when it was first starting to come out, they give me paperwork. And I told the guy, I said, this will be the last time you give me this paperwork. I'm going to use it in the toilet here in a second. I don't want to see any of that crap, because I know how I can play. I know where to play when Miguel Cabrera's up and he's facing a lefty. I know where to play when this guy's up. You're not going to tell me I need to be 2 steps to the left at this point on defense-wise. That's just me ranting a little bit. Excuse me. Anyway, we talk about free agents a lot. You just went through arbitration. Have you talked to or heard from anybody that's going through it right now? Because there's still a lot of free agents out there. I know you got a lot of buddies out there you played with or played against. You haven't gone through this yet, but still, is there, any talks, anything going on? Because there's still a ton of free agents out there.
Yeah, so just my experience. So I've gotten to know some of the starting pitchers the last couple of years. So I remember having conversations with Gosman and Robbie Ray a little bit. Gosh, were they signed their contracts last year or 2 years ago? Just getting their mind about what they thought about free agency, how it went for them, that kind of thing. Because everybody everybody views it as like, oh, it's a great time, you get to pick, and you really get 2, maybe 3 offers to choose from. So just kind of getting the reality of it, kind of understood it a little bit last year, going through it again this year, talking to some guys. I'm still, one of my best friends in the game is Josh Hader, and I talk to him, pretty often. He's the guy that's still out there. He's still going through it. And just listening to the difference of the reliever markets to the starting pitcher market, to the position player market. Obviously he's still unsigned, and he's in a market that usually takes most of the offseason into spring training for it to fully develop and sign a place. So it's just interesting to hear the different markets and how their pace goes. And it seems like this year has been even slower, with the big signings of Ohtani and Yamamoto. It's kind of slowed everything down. But yeah, there's still a ton of free agents out there, and it's exciting for teams to know that there's still that many options out there when we're, a month away from spring training starting.
Yeah, and I'll say this because you won't, and you don't need to say this. Oh, nice, my freaking chain's falling apart. The off-season excuse of the year from some teams is the TV money, the RSNs. I won't get you down that rabbit hole, but there's a lot of BS there. They're fine. They have money. And hopefully they spend it at some point over the next few weeks. So a lot of fans in the chat asking about Hader, obviously knowing from this show maybe because he popped on at one point that you guys are boys. So have you spoken to him at all or hung out with him? And when you do you talk about this at all, or do you try and be that friend where you're like, screw it, let's just have a good time and let's have that be the only topic we don't cover and we can do whatever else we want to do, and you're kind of uplifting. So give us the lowdown.
Yeah, we've hung out. We've hung out quite often. Obviously, our sons are both about the same age. Our wives are best friends. We're best friends. So, we text all the time. We talk all the time. We hung out around Thanksgiving, hung around Christmas. Actually, we're together on Christmas Day. So, we're still very close. And usually it's a brief, hey, how's the body feeling? How's your arm feeling? Always, for me and him, most importantly, it's always health. So we're always checking in to make sure we're going to be healthy to be able to throw that year. And then I usually just a quick question. Hey, how's arbitration going, or how did it go? How's free agency? How's it going? And that's about it. It's more about, just spending time with each other, shooting the shit, catching up, talking about each other's kids and what life's been doing. So not a ton of baseball talk, just because me and him are very similar in the off season. We want to focus on life outside of baseball because we know we got 8 months of the year where it's nonstop baseball. Talking about it in the clubhouse, you see games on all the time. So when we get the opportunity to just talk anything besides baseball, we do, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting, just anything.
You get out with brother at all, hunting or fishing or nothing, or stricken outdoors?
I'm not into the hunting like he is. He's got all of his land in Missouri, and he's building all kinds of lodges and all kinds of stuff that he's going to take us to one day. But I haven't gone out with him fishing this year. He hasn't taken the boat out in the water, so I'm a little bit disappointed in him on that. But I go out, 2 or 3 times a month, whether it's by myself or get out quite often with Andrew Vaughn, another good friend of mine. So there's definitely some time to get out there. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed in him that he hasn't gotten the boat out in the water this offseason.
That's brutal, brother. All right,
brother.
So let's put the 2024 postseason. All right, after the season, you're a free agent. Think about all these guys that are being held up by the RSNs, being held up by Yamamoto and Shohei and all that stuff. How are you going to be handling it at this time of year? Everything from what's your mindset to what kind of calls. Like we talked to Todd about it earlier today. Todd was talking about how the fact that he was calling his agent and be like, bro, what's the deal with this? Like, why aren't they calling? Like, you need to call this guy. Like, I'll call him. How are you going to handle all this?
Well, ironically, I've already had these conversations with Scott. He's going through a lot of it right now with Snell and Montgomery and Bellinger and Chapman. I mean, gosh, he's got so many names you can't even count. But we've had the conversations. He's like, look, we're a year away. We're going to get to have these conversations now. Markets are different each year. Basically, you're going to have a team to play on come whatever, mid-February of 2025. It's like you don't have to worry about it. You're going to be one of the better pitchers out there. Teams are going to want you. You're going to have a deal. So for me, it's reassuring because you just don't know what's going to happen. It seems like every offseason something else comes up of a slow market this year because of Ohtani, Yamamoto, RSN deals. So hopefully all that's taken care of. We won't have those guys in the free agent market. and I'm signed by Thanksgiving next year, but that's not going to happen. That's just not how things go. And so part of me is going to be having to be patient, wait it out, knowing that the markets will come around. He's really good at what he does, so I'm going to let him do his job. But there's always that curiosity of, hey, when's it going to happen? When things are going to pick up? What teams are going to reach out? So it's kind of a wait and see game. It's obviously frustrating, but as these guys are going through it this year, it's just something that happens every offseason.
But the uncertainty of like not knowing where you're going for spring training, that doesn't bother you, or the fact that maybe Scott's, yes, he's looking out the best for Corbin, but he's looking out for the best of his next 60 Cy Young award-winning pitchers too. Like, how do you balance both of those things? And yet, it's still you. Yes, I get it. You're trusting Scott, but it's your contract. It's your life that you have to turn around and pack your family up 2 minutes in advance to go to spring training that starts in 3 days. Yeah.
Ultimately, it's my decision, and where I want to end up with the offers I've gotten, it's going to be my choice, and I'm going to do what's best for my family, whether it's a Florida spring training, Arizona spring training, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. We're open to everything. I've had the conversation with my wife already of, hey, this game isn't going to last forever. We're going to be retired, a lot longer than we're going to play this game. So, let's try to do what we can and have fun while we're in the game, knowing that there's going to be so many years after where we can enjoy ourselves and travel and raise the kids and do whatever. So we're very open-minded with where we're going to play, when it's going to happen. We're just going to take it in stride and know that it's just part of the process and enjoy it. The last thing we want to do next year is stress out the entire off season and waste an off season of getting to hang out with the kids and see family and travel for the holidays. So that's the last thing we want to do. So that we're just going to keep it open-minded, enjoy ourselves, and when the time comes to pick the team to sign with, that's when it's going to happen.
Hey, I want to ask you a question here. You brought up a quote that I know you've heard before. You're going to be retired a lot longer than you're going to be playing this game. Who have you heard that quote from before?
Shit, everyone that plays this game. Listen, there's a main guy who says it every year in spring training when we have our meetings. Do you remember who it is? I mean, it seems like everyone in the union will say it too. So it's in the MLB bat, all the players.
Yeah, so Dan Foster. MLB. Dan Foster comes in.
Money.
Bro, he goes like this. He goes, you'll have a stack of money this high. When you're done, you'll have a stack of money this high. I never forget Dan Foster coming. He says the same speech over and over about,
it's true. It's true, though.
It is. It's 100%. You got to look out for your family at the end of the day. Because I remember my wife was on my ass 24/7. And, she was a little pipsqueak. I love her to death. But she was like, call him again. Call him again. I'm like, you freaking call him then if you care. I'm like, leave me alone. But, yes, uncertainty of what you're doing. My last question to you is, man, forget about everything else. Put everything out the window. How excited are you to come in this year knowing you just finally got your money? Let's go. It's go time here pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm excited. Obviously, I've had a lot of conversations with Murph recently. Murph's fired up. Obviously, first year managing in a long time. He's excited for the squad. He's excited to get to camp. Murph lives out here, so I'm sure he's going to the complex every day to see some of the minor league guys that are in there. But he's fired up. Obviously we're going to have a young squad. There's still, like I said, still a lot of offseason left, so there's still room to make additions to the team, but. He knows it's going to be a young team like what we had last year, and people are already counting us out again, which he loves that. It fires him up. He's like, oh, I love it. We're the underdog. We're going to go out. We're going to prove people wrong. That's just it fuels the fire for Murph. So he's excited. I've talked to a couple of the guys, and everyone's itching to get going. Everyone's working out, training hard, throwing already. So it's good to hear that everyone else is just as excited as I am and Murph is, and I'm sure everyone else around the organization is to get back going again and do our best to get to the postseason and make a deep postseason run.
Hey, what do you think about Murph going to hit with Bregman? He likes all his guys. He was on our show and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go over and watch Bregman hit." How do you feel about that? Like a team that you could be playing in the World Series. I feel like you got to give Murph a little bit of a hard time for that.
There's so many things to give Murph a hard time about. It's tough to pick one thing. He says dumb shit every day, and so you try to call him out on it, but then he throws something else at you that leaves you speechless for a little while that you don't even know what to say most of the time. So, who knows? He was probably going to see Bregman because he was hitting with someone else. Who knows? The list of people that Murph knows in this game is incredible. He brings up a name that's, I coached this guy in the 50s. And I'm like, Murph, you're too old to be telling people that you coached in the 50s. So I don't even know that's true. But, he's been around the game forever. He knows every single name in the game. Anytime you hear a free agent that we signed or came up with, he's like, I coached him, or I coached his brother, or I coached his dad. So it's like, dude, you've got too many connections in this game.
So, Corbin, there's some fans in the chat asking about Craig Counsell. And when we had Murph on, we asked him about it, of course. So from your perspective, what's that rivalry going to be like this coming season for the Cubs and the Brewers, and Counsell versus Murph? Because obviously we know Murph's personality and how tight they are, but I just think there'll be this dynamic of like maybe entertaining shit talk, that's going on before, during, and after the game. And obviously for fans and for the division, it's going to be competitive as hell because these should be two of the better teams in the division, right?
Yeah, we've had a great rivalry for ever since I've been up. We've always competed against the Cubs well. They've always played against us well. It didn't matter if they were struggling that year or not. Whenever the Brewers went into Wrigley or the Cubs came into Milwaukee, it was always going to be a tough series, and it's been exciting. Obviously this is going to add to it a little bit. It'll be interesting to go to Wrigley and see how people are interact with Counts, because every time we went in there, we got booed. So it's kind of all of a sudden they went from booing the guy to cheering the guy. So it'll be kind of cool to see. Be curious to see how it plays out. Murph's going to do his job with whoever we're coaching against. He's not going to try to draw attention to that. He's going to have his plan. We're going to go out and try to win that day. Hopefully we beat him every time we play him. But it'll be fun. It'll be cool to see Counts again and talk to him. I've had a pretty good relationship with Counsell for the last 4 or 5 years. So just to see him in a different uniform will definitely be different. But it'll be good to see him, and it'll be good to beat him.
Yeah, I cannot wait to watch those games. Okay, so one more here, follow-up question on our hater discussion from earlier, because I want to, and we've been doing this, defend him, and I'm sure you can do the same. Sometimes fans are like, well, he won't pitch the 8th inning, or, is he really going to pitch the 8th? Like they bring that up nonstop, as if every closer goes 2 innings in the game. And, the backstory. We've talked about the backstory to an extent. I also haven't gotten this from Josh this second, but I can pretty much guarantee, knowing him, that the team that he signs with, which will probably be multiple years, he will probably make himself available in those kind of scenarios now with a long-term contract. And it's not like this has come up a billion times in the past. What's your take, though, on, him catching some flack for fans for, especially that one game, I think it was, the Padres are out of it, and, he could have come in for an out or two and they lost, but they were already essentially eliminated.
Yeah, so I think the reason Hader gets a lot of that is because that's what he did when he came into the big leagues in 17 and 18. He was the 7th, 8th inning guy before he became the closer. And so everyone's like, we were used to seeing Josh Hader for 2 years, throw 2 innings. You don't see any other closer in the league throw 2 inning saves every time they go out there. So I think that's just Hader got this rap of being a multi-inning guy when he wasn't a closer when he first came up and did really well. Then when he transitioned to the closer role, he took on the prototypical closer role of being the 9th inning guy and going in and getting 3 outs and getting the save, winning a baseball game. So obviously the other thing is Josh is all about being healthy, just as every other pitcher is. And so if you want a closer to go out there and throw 110 innings in a season, it's going to be tough for them to stay healthy. But that doesn't mean that in August, September, come crunch time in the postseason, if you ask him to get a 5, 6 out, 4 out save, he's not going to go out there and do it. He's going to go out there and do it. It's just, he's a competitor. He wants to win. He's a team guy. But just asking a closer to throw 2 innings 5 days a week for the entire season and throw 100 innings it's not reasonable.
Kratz, basically what I'm getting here is, and I think this is true, he set the bar too high early on. It's like you go on a first date and you're on a private jet and you're on island and there's like a movie set up, and I don't know, you just have some ridiculous first date, and then the next date you go to a fast food joint. You're like, wait, what? I thought we did that every time.
Let's put it this way. To use your analogy, the equivalent was you did a private jet, 24 roses, all this stuff. Then the rest of the time, the rest of the dates were like 5-star restaurants, no private jet, but a weekend vacation in New York. Like Hader is the bee's knees. And this is why we're talking about the 8th inning. Like, this dude has done stuff in the game that nobody has seen. Now, Devin Williams has followed in his footsteps, so whatever Hader gets, Devin should get also. Like, those are two of the elite closers in the game right now, and they're going to free agency. You are getting exactly what he's put out there. So don't give me this whole 8th inning trash. Like, this dude has been elite except for a 16-game stretch in his entire career, which there's other extenuating circumstances with that like, if you're really going to spend $100 million and you're worried about 16 games that he didn't do well in, why don't you call him up and see what was going on during those 16 games? And I think you might up it to like 120 for brother.
Yeah, I mean, every penny that a team spends on him is going to be well worth it. I mean, the guy works his butt off. You make sure to take care of himself. From the minute he gets there, he's got a plan of, hey, I'm going to go do my throwing routine, get my workout in, do my arm care. Like, the guy just is the ultimate like guy taking care of his body, keeping his mind right. Goes out and performs, and it's tough to argue.
I think with those dates, basically, it's not just that; it's the consistency. It's like every date he's always going to show up there too. That's what's gone into the durability of him just pitching the 9th. All right, last one here, just following up on that. Wasn't there a time like several years back where you guys, one of your playoff runs had him in that multiple inning stretch, and I felt like the game planning was around him, right? Like, it would be, when are we going to bring him in? When are we going to get 3 shutout innings, right? Like, he was that much of a factor in that role, which was nuts, because obviously he'd get like 2 days off, pitch 3 innings. You're right. He was one of a kind in our game, and it's definitely not good for pitcher health.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that was probably the team in 18. That's when I came up in 18. I mean, our bullpen that year was unbelievable. We had the reason Hader was throwing the 5th, 6th, and 7th innings is because he had Jeremy Jeffress, who had one of the best years of his career, and our closer was Corey Knebel, who was an all-star as well. So it's like our bullpen that year, all we needed a starting pitcher to do was throw 3 innings, because then it felt like I was throwing the 4th, Hader was throwing the 5th, Woody was throwing the 5th, Hader was throwing the 6th and 7th, Jeffress the 8th, Knebel the 9th, and like that's what we did in the postseason. That's what we did down the stretch in September. And it's the reason probably we got 1 game away from the World Series that year, is our bullpen was so dominant that we had starting pitchers that just said, hey, go through the order one time, and then we've got 4 or 5 guys we can match up to close the game out with Hader throwing 7 or 8 punches somewhere in the middle of the game.
Yeah, incredible. You can't wait to see where he ends up. Dude, great catching up as always. Thank you, Corbin. Enjoy the fam time. We'll talk to you probably at this point in spring training.
Sounds good. Thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you. Corbin Burnes of the Milwaukee Brewers. Always a great chat. Love talking to Corbin. Yes?
I second what he said about the 2018 Brewers, but I'm also going to put it out here right now because AJ was giving me a hard time about my predictions. I'm going to go 335 for shoot. Now I had it down. Corbin next year, 335 for 9 years.
Boom. Okay, there you go. We'll mark it down. That's some good dough. On that front, let's make some money before our next guest. A little BetMGM action looking at the Brewers. That's our team of the day as we check out their World Series odds over the course of this season. So heading into the season, plus 3,500, and then mid-season plus 5,000. I think that was when the Reds were pretty sexy, making a nice little run.
Yep.
And then you get to plus 2,000 by the time we get to postseason time, because they were a postseason team. So even though they were not expected to go the distance, and I think that was right around probably when we got the Woodruff news as well about him not being part of the playoffs that knocked them down. They still, they had a shot, but as a team, kind of got blitzed there by a super hot Arizona Diamondbacks team. So I think some of us saw some sexiness though, Kratz, with Milwaukee, just based on what they could bring with the rotation when Woody was healthy, when we had Big Woo and you had Corbin and Freddie Peralta, you're like, that team could mess with a lot of people. The problem is they had to get past the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, didn't see that coming, and that's why I chose them to make the run that the Diamondbacks ended up making. I chose the Brewers to make that run, but clearly we made our choices the day before they announced the big woo was going to be out. Because to me, you look at that, they have a game up advantage if you have 3 studs like they had going into the series. A game up advantage meaning I'll take Corbin Burnes, I'll take Big Woo up against anybody's 1-2. No matter how good Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly were, you have a game advantage because now you get to throw Freddie P up against your team's third. Some teams weren't even throwing a starter. They were throwing bullpen guys out there. So to me, that was the game changer. And I was going out on a limb, but boy, did I love that plus 2,000. Plus 2,000. That would have been delicious.
It is. It's scrumptious. It is so nice. Anyway, place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the app of at least $5, and you'll get $158 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. You can get the offer by downloading the app, signing up, and depositing at least $5 into your newly created BetMGM Sportsbook account. Place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at standard odds price. Once you place that bet, you'll receive $158 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. Gambling problem or concern? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. And I'll throw this out there. So Jim Duquette's about to join us, former general manager. He's on SiriusXM, SNY, etc. Super locked into the sport. So any questions that you have in terms of where your team's at, what the free agent market's looking like, are the excuses from teams legit, any of that, we'll get to it with Duke coming up in just a sec. And I'm also going back and forth with one of the regulars, D-Rod Kratz. D-Rod's like, I didn't mean it that way, talking about Hader. And I was trying to type this out, but I'm doing the show, so I'll just say it in person. So it's not on you, D-Rod. I think it just brings up a good point. You know, we post a lot of videos on our YouTube channel, and I'll go through those comments. And I've definitely seen some comments when we talked about Hader being like, he's soft, he won't pitch the 8th. And I'm like, come on, that's ridiculous. Let's bring this combo right into our next guest, Jim Duquette, joining us right now, a man of many talents on many networks. You can follow him at Jim Duquette GM, as I mentioned, Sirius, SNY, etc. So, Duke, great to see you, dude. It's been a minute.
Guys?
Yeah, miss you, man.
Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's just bring this one right into the fold. If you're a general manager and you desperately need a closer and you're one of those teams that's like just looking for some icing on top of the cake and a guaranteed 9th inning save and Hader's on the market, do you look into that 8th inning combo? We were having it just now with Corbin Burnes and how, you know, he had bad arbitration with Milwaukee and then wanted to be just more of a consistent 1 inning, 9th inning guy, and has expressed that he would expand that at times when he's with a team that's going to take care of him. So I personally don't give a shit. I think I'll take a Josh Hader, but what do you think, and what would front offices say?
Well, I think Josh Hader has been one of the best closers in the game over his career that we've seen. And it's hard to be really good and really consistent, as we've seen. That's why you appreciate, you know, what Edwin Diaz has done, you know, the stretch that Liam Hendricks did, you know, as he became a full-time closer. Like, those guys are hard to get, and he deserves to be asking for the type of money that he's asking for. I don't know if he's going to get it. But I think that with, you know, some of these teams, they have really diminished that 9th inning, or the importance of the 9th inning. I can tell you this: I've been in the postseason, Scotty. We've been together, you know, probably over a dozen years in the postseason. And man, when you're trying to close out the game, you know, at the end of the year, in important game, let's say save situations, or in the postseason, if you don't have one of those guys, I think it's a real big disadvantage. Now, there are some, you know, a lot of debates with other executives on that role, but not for me. Hader's a guy you have to have. And even if he was only, you know, pitching in the 9th, I don't have a huge problem, especially because you're trying to use him more often during the course of the season. Occasionally he'll pitch 2 days in a row. And if he's willing to go 4 outs or 5 outs, I take that. But if it's just 3 too, I don't know if there's too many guys that are better than that.
Are teams too much, and maybe this is more of like a free agent question, are teams hemming and hawing too much with a guy like Hader you can sit there and do the whole hem and haw with Blake Snell, with Jordan Montgomery. Is Jordan Montgomery more like a 3 or a 2? Blah, 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 blah. Cy Young, no Cy Young, all that stuff. Are they hemming and hawing too much with Hader?
Yeah, Eric, I think so. I mean, when he's used in just those 3 outs there, I think if you're opposing GM, it's fair to wonder, is there something up? If he's not used on back-to-back days, which we know, wasn't always the case there. He's a max effort guy. You wonder, geez, is there something going on there? But once your medical team signs off on him and sees that there's nothing major going on there, then there's no reason why teams shouldn't be all over him. And I honestly think if you give him the contract, he'll pitch for you whenever you want him to. Like that part, the contract and the big numbers and all that, that's behind you, and it's all about winning and not worrying about necessarily the ninth. We've seen times where Diaz with the Mets would come in the 8th, and I loved how Buck used him, and Diaz didn't give a shit. Like let's go, bring me in, I'll get the outs, and then if I can't go the 9th, you got some, David Robertson at one point, and Ottavino was there, and you had other guys that could finish out the 9th. But the heart of the order and really the game on the line in the 8th, sometimes that happens the way the order comes around. I want my best reliever in there, and so I think Hader would be for sure one of those guys that would do that in that type of situation. So, but I do think that in some cases, see when teams, there are certain teams that don't value the 9th inning as much. There are certain teams that look at guys that we can insert whoever and they're interchangeable. And I do think there are some teams that are being impacted by some of the finances, the RSN issue that's been going on. And I think all of that has kind of come together here, and I think that's why you're seeing some of the market being jammed up too.
I want to talk about you. You were an ex-GM before. You understand the ins and outs of signing people. I just feel like back in the day, and I'm thinking, 15, 20 years ago, free agents were going like hotcakes. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it just seems like why in these last couple of years, 5 years, whatever it has, I don't exactly know when it started. It seems like getting the free agency is not fun anymore. And I was a part of it too as well. So do you know why? Do you see the differences? Can you explain why, or is it just something that's just been going on?
So, Todd, I think it's been a difference, maybe even the last probably 5 or 6 years, like you said. But if you go back even 15, there are more teams wanted to win or were trying to win, were being aggressive. So if you're trying to win or you think you have a chance at winning, like you had to be aggressive to go out and get who you wanted, right? And so what you're seeing now is, there's a less of a bar to get in, right? 84 wins, 85 wins, 86 wins, that can get you into the wild card these days, which is good, but it's also bad. It's bad I think on the free agent market, because some of those teams that are on the margins, they don't have to extend to go get that key guy. But I think there's a fear for some general managers, well, if I spend this kind of money and it doesn't work out, I'm going to lose my job. There's a lot of factors that weigh into this, but that's a part of it too. So, I think more than anything, I'd like to see more teams decide they're going for it and try to win. And, I don't think we're there yet by any stretch.
Okay, so on that front, I'll mix in a fan question or two for you, Duke, from Jacob. Do you think a salary cap / floor would actually help teams with teams not trying to compete? Cap and floor question there. Or do you think, as we've seen often with our game, loopholes and BS would surface for teams to still kind of skirt through and be cheap and pocket money, the ones at the bottom that get all the revenue sharing?
The teams are always going to find a loophole, right? We saw even the Dodgers with the deferred money. I mean, that loophole's been there since I was in the front office, 15 years ago. And you could defer money and get the luxury tax benefits from it. Just no one was willing to kind of go to the extreme that the Dodgers did. I've always felt that I don't think we'll ever see a cap in our sport. Like you have to kind of go under the assumption that players would never go for it. In my mind, now that I'm in this position, I can see both sides. And if I were the players, I wouldn't want to cap either. But when I say that, I always say, well, maybe a floor would help with some of those teams. But I will say this: the way some of the changes in the recent CBA, like if you're going to tank, you can't be, you can't have a top 10 pick if you've stunk it up for after 2 straight years. I think that can help a little bit. I think giving teams the incentive to bring up players that are ready in the minor leagues instead of playing the service time game that they used to play, and they get a draft pick if those guys end up, 1 or 2 in the rookie of the year or the MVP, like things like that we can do as a sport to create more incentives for some of these smaller revenue teams. And if you want to dangle draft picks, they're draft pick whores. Like they want to go after. They'll take draft picks all day long because there's huge value for them. So if we want to we'll call it fix the problem or get them to spend a little bit more money, dangle a few prospects out there, and I think that'll solve it.
All right. So speaking of draft picks, speaking of free agents, this is super random free agent. I got to ask you because I have a special place in my heart for Gary Sanchez.
Yes.
Why, based on the season that Gary Sanchez had, from a rate status to just, an at-bat status, why is he not signed somewhere for a 2-year deal? In my opinion, somewhere a 2-year deal in the $18 million range. Is it the past where people are going to say, oh, his defense is no good because he had a 1.2 WAR just on defense last year alone, and Victor Caratini got a 2-year, $12 million deal?
Yeah. I do think there's a little bit of bias from the past with him and his defense, no question. I don't know if you got a chance to see him a lot, Eric, last year or not. I saw him in spurts in San Diego, and I was like, whoa, that's gotten a lot better. And I felt like he was being, you would know better than me on this, but sounded like he was being instructed in a lot of different ways. What he was used to, whether is he gonna catch with a knee down or not, like all those things that maybe he's comfortable with it, maybe he's not. I mean, he's a big guy anyway, and the mobility maybe wasn't there. But I was really impressed with the way he caught last year, and the power obviously was there too. So I'm a little surprised he's sitting out there, and he was sitting out there obviously this time last year. I was talking to one of his agents. Actually, it was about this time last year, and he was like, "Man, we're not getting a lot of interest out there." I would think there'd be a lot more interest right now. Having said all that, there's not a ton of teams right now that are looking at catching. I don't think. I'm trying to I feel like Tampa always is looking for catching. But I think that for him, it should absolutely be at least a 1-year major league deal. Possibly 2. I don't even know how old he is now these days, but yeah, he's a guy that's like there's a lot of guys on the market that I'm still wondering why they're out there and don't have a job, and he's definitely one.
I was just going to repeat exactly what you said at the end there, why there's guys still sitting there, and that goes back to what I asked you. I want to go to a certain team. I want to go to the Yankees a little bit. Are they done, you think, or are they gonna keep on pushing here to get some guys? Are you happy with what they did? Should they go after more people?
See, I got asked this last night, Todd. I think they're right now third place team in the American League East, and that's not good enough for the Yankees, right? Now, if they add, a couple of reasons why I think that. First off, there's a lot more uncertainty with their starting rotation this year because of all the injuries and the guys who didn't give you, the 2 guys, Cortez and Rodon, I think had a total of 120 innings, right? And then Schmidt had the second most innings of any of their projected starters right now. We know Stroman, if he's healthy, but all these guys have that ... if healthy, they're going to pitch well. So I'm a little bit concerned there. So to protect yourself, they need a little bit more, I think, depth rotation-wise, but they need bullpen help. Now, they get a couple of these bullpen guys. Like I like the potential Neris, signing if they get him. I mean, I think Hader's the perfect fit there, but if they don't want to do that with Holmes in the back end, there's so many other guys that they could go after. I'd feel a lot better. I don't know about you guys. I like their offense better. Verdugo, as long as he's down lineup, obviously with Soto in there, he's gonna be a beast there. So I'm not as concerned about their offense. Sean Casey, I had him on my show recently. He's like, I think LeMahieu's going to have a bounce back year. I do too, just watching him. He looks like he's healthy now. So I think, we know Riz is going to be good, now that he's back through the concussion. So I think that offense is going to be a lot better than what we saw. Just have a little bit of concern there on the pitching side. And hopefully they'll go out and get a couple of relievers.
I got a fan question here from Javi. He says, how well do you think Yamamoto adjusts to the MLB scene?
Well, oh man, that's always a good question when you get a guy over from Japan, because as you guys know, there's always all sorts of adjustments. You get the ball, the travel, the mounds, the new team. If you're going to have them pitch every fifth day or sixth day, I'm just going to go off of what we saw with Kodai Senga last year, right? I think that's the most current comp and barometer, not in size-wise, but just pitching and making all those adjustments. And I think if you watch Senga, he came in early to spring training. He avoided the WBC, and he just learned his catchers, and the catchers learned him. He got accustomed to the ball. He got accustomed to all those things that you're looking at. And then as the season went on, he made in-season adjustments about as well as any first-year pitcher, whether it's Japan, rookie, whatever, that you're going to see. And I think as long as Yamamoto is open to doing that in season, I think the adjustment won't be that big of a deal. His stuff it looks filthy. You guys have had people on. I've seen we had Luis Brinson on, who faced him. He said he's going to give teams a lot of trouble, a lot of headaches, and that's the type of stuff that he has. I wouldn't want to face. I don't think there's anyone that wants to face the guy, but I think it's going to be a quick learning curve for him. And if there is a struggle early, I don't think it's going to be long.
Todd wants to face him. That guy doesn't have anything that he doesn't throw enough balls that go far enough out of the zone. Todd would whack that dude. Absolutely whack Yamamoto.
I've been asked to come back and play by Murphy, so, you never know.
Oh, yeah.
Let's
true. Go. Get back in it.
Yeah, Todd's comfortable at home. That white sweatshirt wouldn't be as white anymore. I got to take you to the O's. Okay, yeah. Can the O's now? I'll say this first. I'll preface it. I love Bradish. I think Bradish has a chance to be a number one in this game, an all-star year in and year out. Can this team, the way it is built, and the fact that they are going to absolutely pinch their pennies and not spend at all, win a World Series without an ace, without a guy that's at least equal to Bradish?
So the great equalizer there is Grayson Rodriguez. The way they're currently constructed with their rotation, do they have a chance? Yes, but I there's not a certainty that I would sit there and say, oh yeah, I want to push all my chips in on the Orioles to win the World Series. But like last year we saw Rodriguez really pitch well, right, in the second half, and I think if he takes that next step, he has a chance to be, if not Bradish, close. He certainly has the stuff to do it. And if Bradish is what he is, the guy that doesn't get as much attention is Means, because, the guy was an all-star before he had Tommy John. He was healthy at the end of the year. He had a little hiccup in the postseason, but it didn't sound like it was serious. And so I think they have enough pitching to get there. And I would love to see, at the deadline, them be a little bit more aggressive than they've been. Last 2 years ago, they were sellers, unfortunately. This past year, I thought they needed to be more aggressive, and they really weren't. So I do think that they have enough to have a similar type season. 100 wins is it feels like a once-in-a-lifetime type of season. So I don't know if they can back that up again. But they definitely have the talent, and I think they have the starting rotation to win the division. But I think to get to the World Series, they're going to need another guy. And maybe that's trading for your prior guest if he's available at the deadline, and Corbin Burnes. Maybe it's Dylan Cease. I don't know. Maybe it's Jesus Luzardo. Those are the guys that seem like, at least the last two, Luzardo and Cease, the ones that are available now. I just would love to see them end up acquiring one of those guys. It just doesn't seem like they're going to be aggressive enough to go get one of them right now.
To me, it's the time to strike. To me, for them, it's the time to strike because they're young, because they are electric at so many spots. That would just solidify them. And all we've talked about so far on this show today is, well, if they can do this, this is a little bit of a bounce back. Pitching staff rotation-wise right now, because there's some concerns with the Dodgers. Buehler's coming off Tommy John, and Glasnow is never thrown over 120 innings. Yamamoto has never made more than 26 starts. What starting rotation right now can you say, wow, that is a starting rotation in the big leagues that does it for me?
Oh man, I don't have one that has a full 5 other than maybe Seattle that you feel really good about, right? Toronto, I'd say, has 4. They just signed the Cuban pitcher there, Rodriguez. We don't know an awful lot about him, whether he's going to go in the rotation or not. I think Manoah's good. Personally, it sounds like Manoah has changed his workout routine this winter. So I would bet on him. I'm not going to bet a ton there, but I'm going to bet on him coming back. If he does, they might have 5. But right now, I think you have to look at 4 because there's a little question on Kikuchi too, maybe. But those are the 2 that come to my mind. After that, like who else has any depth, right? The Rangers in the second half, their rotation has a chance to be filthy, right? But as we know, there's hiccups there with guys coming back from any of their injuries, surgeries, and the physical therapy route can go wrong. So there's a lot of things there that could go wrong. But I like what they're in June or July beyond. I like what their rotation might look like too. But there's no one outside of Toronto and Seattle. I don't know. Is there a team that I'm missing that you guys thought of?
No, Seattle was the one that I thought of. I really like Seattle.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for Kratzy there. Thank you. I want to jump into the Cubbies a little bit. It felt like, man, when were they going to make a splash? And all of a sudden they did. And do you feel like they're done? Do you feel like they should keep going now after what they've done, picking up the pitcher from Japan?
It doesn't look like they're done, Todd, at least from what Jed Hoyer's talked about. When I was in the front office, and even some of the messages that you hear from the front office guys now, like, I hate the word measured. Like, don't be measured. Like, are we going for the postseason berth here or not? Like, they didn't get to the postseason, and I thought they were measured last year, and that's what they've been so far this year. I don't know if Imanaga is going to replace Stroman. I mean, Stroman had a hell of a year. I know it was interrupted by injury, but his first half was, he was an all-star, as you guys know. And they don't have Bellinger back, and they haven't replaced Bellinger unless I don't know what you're going to get out of Michael Busch yet. So they said they're in the 4th or 5th inning of their winter. So I'm going to assume they're still, going to go out there and make improvements. I think they need a third baseman. They could use a first baseman, maybe. Bello Bush might be the answer. They definitely need an upgrade. They need Bellinger back is really what they need. And then I think they need some bullpen too. So I don't know. They don't seem like they're on Hader, but I feel like that's a perfect fit. Like, they're holding back, but I also feel like they're the one team that has the money that could be aggressive and are a dangerous team to watch in the next month because they might surprise us all and get some deals or bargains on the free agent market the way it's looking right now.
I got Reese Hoskins going there, but I have a GM question. I have a GM question for you that we always want all these GMs to speak. And then when they speak, what the heck? Why did that guy open his mouth? Should GMs talk more? Because he said 4th or 5th inning, and I made the joke yesterday, sarcastically, what happens if there's a rainout? Maybe he didn't, right. Or the full throttle comments from the front office from the Red Sox. It's full, like FOOL, full throttle.
I tell you, the messaging this winter, I'll throw another one at you. You're in the largest market in the sport, and you're going to say, we want to be competitive. Really? Really, New York Mets? You want to be competitive? No. That's not going to fly. Not with the money you're charging, not with the expectations of your fan base. Like, we got to come up with a better messaging campaign or whatever it might be for these GMs and front offices and even owners. Now, all of a sudden, the Mets, I don't know if you noticed this, they changed. Now they're like, we expect to be competitive and a postseason team. All right, I like it, David Stearns. You got it. You made the adjustment, which I love. But you can't tell me that the Red Sox are full throttle, and now they come out and they're almost apologizing for it, like his owner Tom Warner. So I know this: when we had these winter caravans, and if we had a terrible winter, man, I dreaded going to them because the fans were going to let you have it, right? And when the Red Sox go to Springfield for their winter caravan, that's where I grew up in Massachusetts, right? I was a Red Sox fan growing up, and they let you know if they think your team stinks. My cousin obviously was GM there for a long time. They just inducted him into the Hall of Fame, but they let him know, and sometimes they let me know. I had nothing to do with the Red Sox, and they let me know the Red Sox stink, and why aren't you doing better? So, I love the fan bases that put the pressure on the front offices and ownership to field competitive teams.
Are you surprised that fans buy into ownership's messaging and assume their teams can't afford, to get these players?
If they do, here's the thing: if you're, any of these large market clubs, you can't really, with a straight face, say that you can't afford these players. Like it's
every
not
player's making
right?
money. You know how it is.
It's not believable. It's not. Obviously, even the overall team values, they continue to go up. I don't know if there's a team that's worth less than $1.5 billion now these days, for all of them. So there's money there, but I do think that the only thing I'll defend owners on is I never, when I was with the Orioles, I never would ask my owner to spend out of his pocket, like to deficit spend, right? So the revenues, what the revenues are, what your expenses are. And if he's saying to me, listen, our revenues are, let's say, 150 million. I didn't ask him for 160. 150 should be plenty enough to field a competitive team. But some of these teams are bringing in all this revenue and they're not spending it on their team. Like that's kind of ridiculous. And I think the fan bases, some of them are starting to understand that or smart and be a little smarter about it and educated about it. But I wouldn't, on the surface, buy any of it. And I think the owners, they try to come out with this, message about where they are, like Bill DeWitt with the Cardinals. I think I give him credit for coming out and speaking. Sometimes some of these owners, like we see John Henry in Boston, you can't find him. He hadn't spoken in 3 or 4 years. I think that's the absolute worst, especially for a rabid fan base like the Red Sox who show up when you win.
Do you, as a GM, are you privy to what the revenues are as a team? Like, so you have, would you say that's across the board, all 30 GMs, even the status of GMs now, what the revenues are?
Yeah, you should. Well, here's the thing: you should know. If you don't, you should ask. That's part of your job. Is to understand, the what's coming in, the revenues coming in, and the expenditures going out. Even if you're not necessarily privy to all of the details on the business side of, you should have an overall grasp and understanding of revenues and expenses. I mean, Alex Anthopoulos just got a 7-year deal, right? Now they're a publicly traded company. You can get this information, when the company releases, all of their information, their data. But he better know. And Andrew Friedman and David Stearns, all these guys are making huge money as a president of baseball operations. They should definitely know, and I think pretty much all of them know what the money. Where they would be spending, what the spending is, and the deficits or revenue streams are. So I'd be very surprised. Listen, I think all of us know this right off the top. They're all getting $110 million from the national TV deal, right? Every one of them. So look at what the Orioles have, and their payroll was what, $85 million last year. So they're already putting that money in their pocket. You can guarantee it.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, Duke, when I say look at some very basic math, and that we're not even factoring in, say, with Baltimore, how much they got from the ballpark, from the gate, from everything this past season, which was obviously a much better season for them than the previous 6 years of tanking, which is also why when Oakland, John Fisher has said, like, we're losing tons of money. No, you're not. We literally know what the freaking TV contract is, let alone, this is my follow-up question, things like the BAM deal years back where teams thought every ball club's going to spend whatever they got, $30 million or something. My other thing now that's the huge factor is most of these teams are or are becoming real estate entities. Let's buy this land or this restaurant, right? I'll use the Mariners as an example, and I'm going to maybe butcher it a little, but not too far off, right? Because Ryan Divish was on with us recently and said they got a chunk of land, restaurant. It's absolutely crushing. So they probably bought it, took a little loss from the team, then separated into another LLC and profit their asses off. So as an entity and as a whole, let's say that thing's making them a few $1,000,000 or more a year. They don't factor that into the team. Now the team's just back in its separate space. So are GMs that tied in, or is it more just, hey, your budget's 150 this year. Don't worry about anything else. I got my side deals and pockets going on. That's probably what it is, right?
Yeah, some owners would share that information, right? Like, because here's the thing: you're having meetings with every department, oftentimes, and you're getting the state of the department, right? Well, their business guy's coming in. He's giving you the state of, okay, here's what ticket revenues are. Here's where we made money. Oh, by the way, the ballpark, outside of the ballpark, here in Wrigleyville in Chicago, as an example, or what they do in St. Louis, I forget what they call it. Here's what the revenues are. So you're aware of that. By the way, none of that is shareable in revenue sharing with any of the teams. That's all money that's going into their own pocket, right? So they invested in that, and we're supposed to buy that they invested in that, and it's a money losing proposition. Like, no, there's no way that they put money into those settings, into the real estate, into the restaurants, the bars, all of those things there, and to lose money. So, and by the way, that's why the Orioles here in Baltimore, they're trying to restructure their deal with the state to have an area around Camden Yards for that type of thing, like they have in the Battery there in Atlanta. So that's the next revenue stream that these owners are trying to accomplish. Steve Cohen's doing it with the Mets, not just with a casino, but just to try to all those chop shops where I know, like, I have a door and a tire from my early days in the Mets that are still probably over in the chop shops across the street there. Like, there's no, like, those are going to be gone, and I can't wait. I'll be there with the bulldozer.
Hell yeah, dude. I grew up living that life, going around there. There's a lot of activity going on around there. But you're right. It is massive, massive business. And that is why they're in this game. They're not in this just because it's fun and it's cute and they want to win. It is incredibly profitable. So, dude, great to see you. You want to plug anything in particular? I know you got a lot going on. SNY, obviously, I'm listening to you all the time on Sirius in the mornings with Farron, who's been on here, and your boy Bowden, and you and him going off on Sundays. But
yeah,
you got cooking.
Bowden, you guys had Bowden on. He goes, I love it. I love it when he starts singing the mediocre Mets song. That's new. That's new. I will say this: I'm doing some consulting for a showcase, Future Star Series showcase, and Jeremy Booth is a guy that people may not know yet, but he's coming on the scene. He owns the franchise, and I'm going to a junior college event down at Globe Life this weekend. So I'll plug them along with my Sirius XM show. So
nice. Okay. Yeah, of course. All right, we'll check that out. We'll check out what it is and show the link and stuff like that. So enjoy that, dude. Have some fun down in Texas, and great to catch up with you as always, dude. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thank you, Jim Duquette, former general manager and current baseball personality all over. Yeah, he's great. And that kind of insight, obviously we're going over free agents and teams, but then that sliver at the end, Kratz, that's my bread and butter. I love learning about the biz of baseball. I love learning how these billionaires are making their money. It just fascinates me.
Yeah, and I'm not against them making their money.
Me neither.
I'm against them holding it back and not giving your city the best chance you can to win it all. Like when he said about that revenue part of it, that is so intriguing to me. If you know your guy in Baltimore is bringing in, I'm going to be conservative, and it's $200 million in revenue. From last year, because of what they did, I am in JD's corner. I'm in the Duke's corner here. I am not going to spend out of his pocket. I'm not going to spend out of the restaurant that he built across the street. No. What I want is that revenue that was brought in so I can build this roster for what it is, for the hard work that I put in to making this minor league organization, to get these draft picks. All the money you saved the last 6 years, I'm not even going to ask for that. I'm just going to ask for what was brought in last year when we started filling Camden Yards and won 100 games. And now I want that cash for the roster that I'm going to build. And in 4 years from now, when you don't resign any of these guys, that's fine. You start pocketing it again because we have to rebuild again. But right now, I need that cash. And that was really interesting to me, what he said.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. By the way, I mentioned the Mariners. We're going to talk to former Mariner Jarred Kelenic coming up pretty soon. Excited to get his thoughts on the upcoming season. Now he's with the Atlanta Braves. They know what's up. He's with one of the best organizations out there. So while we have a few minutes, we are going to bring back the ever so popular Wheel of Free Agents. Yes. Who would like to go first to spin? I think Todd Father, you look very excited. Would you like to begin?
Yeah, let's do it.
Just kind of give it a...
so enthusiastic. This is the wheel of spin. It's a free agent wheel.
Look at those colors, Todd. It's full of different shades of yellow and green.
Wow, good
Your
pick
boy.
by you. This is a knockout of a pick.
Former teammate.
Wow. Timmy Anderson, how we doing, big dog? We haven't talked about Tim in a while.
Mm-mm.
Wow.
What's the deal? So, I mean, he had a brutal season. You can look up the numbers. It was awful. I mean, he had some situations he was dealing with off the field too, but on the field, it was not working for him. He made some tweaks that got a little bit better, but on the year, Todd Father was bad. But I don't think anybody looks at him and says, all right, well, now he's cooked. Like, look at the past, 4 or 5 years before that, consistent 300 hitter. Maybe you move him to second base, but what do you got on TA? And do you think there's any potential spots that he might be a fit in terms of like a change of scenery and maybe a spot that he'd vibe with?
Yeah, I mean, think about this. Tim Anderson, he was he won an AL batting title, 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I played with him his rookie year. He's a superb athlete. He could run. He's a good shortstop. I remember the first time I played with him, I said, listen, let me guide you here a little bit, go off my lead. And I'd be like, move over left. When we talk it out, I'm like, now as you get older, you're going to have to understand as you're playing guys and playing against teams, you're going to have to do this yourself. So try and hone these skills in. And, he got better and better each year. He had some trouble this year. I get it. Some things that happen off the field, he could bring into the game as well. But I do think he can still be that Tim Anderson that I know and love. Team-wise, oh boy. I mean, we talked about the Angels in the beginning. I think that would bode well for him. Change of scenery. Man, off the top of my head, Timmy Anderson. Where could he I call me crazy, but I mean, I could see him playing second base for the Orioles. I mean, am I way off the charts by saying that, Scooter?
It's only because they have so many guys already and they're not spending money at all.
Exactly.
That's the problem. It's not. It's more unrealistic. Yeah, sure. It'd be nice veteran depth for them, and I do think the Reds actually hedge themselves by getting Candelario. And even though I don't love the free agent signing there, they're going, hey, we have all these young guys. They're not all going to have great second years. I like the first answer you went with, and obviously Kratz is going to get excited about it. But put him at second base with the Halos. And
that's the easy one.
Let him ride.
This is our free agent game. This is our free agent game. He's going to play second base. He's going to play second base. They're going to move our boy over to shortstop for the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh.
Love it. Need to see it.
That's not going to happen.
Nope, 100%. Not going to happen. They have 8,000 middle infield prospects.
That will be up
because
of the whole
I just wanted
incident.
To see it. That's all.
Yeah, no, the whole incident. He's not going there.
I don't know. I think.
Hey, why not the Miami Marlins?
I thought of the Marlins, but Luis Ariz is playing there, and now all of a sudden you have 2 second basemen that have zero power. I thought of the Marlins, and I feel like this could be something that I don't know that the Marlins have $8 million. I think Tim Anderson is a solid pickup to play second base, and if something happens to your shortstop, this is why the Angels make such a great fit in case something happens with Neto, who I think is their shortstop for the future. But if something happens with him, now you have a big league shortstop, and there is not many big league shortstops out there. I don't think the Marlins have $8 million to spend. Just being flat honest.
Well, also, I
they
think
all
there's
have money. They all have money.
Yeah, they all have no. But he's saying they're not giving them money.
They're not going to give it. Yeah,
they're not being given the money to be able to do that. I mean, so if you look at the Angels right now, Anthony Rendon is obviously completely unreliable. Whether he wants to play or not, he can't stay on the field anyway. And then there was, obviously some controversy, and that was pretty well covered by us the other day, I must say, with Ron Washington. But you can't sign a third baseman ahead of him, like a big money third baseman. They're not suddenly signing Matt Chapman. Okay. They can't do that. That's too much of a shot at him. Obviously, I'm sure some Angels fans would love to see that. But it is nice insurance when you have someone like Drury who can play all over the place, right?
Yep.
And Rengifo to an extent too. Obviously, Neto's going to hold down shortstop. That's where TA adds that middle infield depth. And, it's almost like what Cashman said about Stanton. I mean, really, it's Perry who should say that about Rendon. We're only going to expect 30, 40 games, something like that from him. So you need to set up your infield kind of like a shadow infield of what it would look like when Rendon goes down. So
and he was just a guest, on here yesterday. Wash, I mean, talk about a connection, talk about a place.
Wow,
if you're
yeah,
Tim Anderson,
I didn't even think about that.
If you're talking about a place,
my
you go,
God.
Tim
That'd be
Anderson,
perfect.
like resurgence. Now all of a sudden he goes out onto the market as a 28, 29-year-old free agent shortstop that had a resurgent year. Wash is, let's put it this way. I don't play, and I played at a mediocre level when I did play. That dude makes me feel like I'm already a better player just by the 20, 30-minute interview we had with him the other day.
And I'll say this too, because I did some digging on TA. I actually think he's going to have a bounce back physically regardless. He had some knee issues. Lance Lynn brought it up, and if you look at his sprint speed, it went down way too much. It's not like he suddenly aged like that. Sprint speed going down like that, to me, sometimes means there's a lower body injury, and there was a knee issue. I don't know if he talked about it that much. Some guys like to kind of keep that on the DL, but I think TA is going to have a nice bounce back year, and I think that's a good fit for him. So we'll see what happens. Plus, obviously, Kratz, we have some personal history with the Angels fan base. So if he does sign there, there is going to be absolute glory. It is going to be a celebration. It will be a national holiday on FT. We will mark the day down forever in FT history, and we'll bring on some of our friends.
First said here
a long ass time ago, and everyone gave it crap. So, all right, we're ready to bring in our next guest. Excited to have him on here for the first time on FT Live. Jarred Kelenic of the Atlanta Braves joining us right now. Jarred, great to see you, man. How does that sound, by the way? Does it sound weird, or now you're getting used to it?
Oh, it sounds awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it does sound good, dude. What do you think
chilling.
about the Atlanta Braves? Obviously, you've watched them from afar. I know you're a big baseball guy in general. Watch games, highlights, all that before or after your games. What have you thought of the way that the Braves organization's been run like?
I mean, it's hard not to be a fan. I feel like, I think they do everything I've heard. They do it the right way. And obviously they're a hell of a team. And I'm just like super excited to be a part of it now.
Let me ask you this. First time I met you, do you remember where we were?
Citi Field, baby.
Citi Field, bro. Before you were in Mariner, you were actually a Met. And that was for basically how long? Maybe a month or two? I mean, how long was that?
It was like 3 months or something.
3 months. Now, let me ask you this. You get drafted. You're excited. You're like, man, I'm going to be a New York Met. 3 months later, you get traded. I want you to tell the people what went through your mind, how you felt, the conversations you had. Like, this is stuff people need to know, like the difficult part about playing this game. Yeah, baseball's fun, but they could sweep you right from under that rug in a heartbeat. So explain to me your thoughts and what went through. I blame myself because you met me and then you got traded, so I apologize.
No. Well, it was crazy because I remember when I was with New York, they had me go out to Florida for this, it was like all the guys that had just gotten drafted. There was a camp or something. And all the coaches and stuff, we were down there, and one of the nights we had all went out to dinner. And we were at dinner, and I remember looking up at the TV, and it was breaking news. It was just it was announcing that there was a possible trade, and I kept seeing my name up there, and I'm looking around at everyone at the table, is anyone else seeing this? And then I remember my parents were calling me, like, hey, we're reading that you're probably going to get traded. And I was like, yeah, I mean, my agent's telling me no way. It never happens the first, the same year you get drafted, you don't get traded. So I was like, just don't worry about it. Well, then I remember I flew home the next day, and it was everywhere that it was going to happen. And I was like, I think this is got more traction than we believe. And and then I actually found out on Twitter at the time first.
Nice. That's a great way to find out. You don't find out from somebody else. You find out on your Twitter feed when you refresh. That's super.
Yeah.
What could you have done differently in your long stint with New York, but mostly in your Seattle stint? What could you have done differently to be more successful, to stay there longer? But on that same hand, what could they have done differently for you, both organizations?
Yeah, I think one thing that I feel like I could have done a better job of was is probably controlling my emotions better. I mean, obviously I had the cooler incident, but that's definitely something that has completely changed not only like my baseball career around, but like just the way I view my life now. So as bad as that was, it was great. But I would say the biggest thing is understanding the things that I can and can't control a little bit better. I think that when you get drafted, everything kind of happens pretty fast, and it did for me. I got drafted in 18, went through 3 levels in 2019. 2020 was a wash, and then I was up in the big leagues in 21. And so everything kind of, just happened so quickly, and I was always just looking forward to getting to the big leagues. And as all of us baseball players are, you dream about that, and that's what you work for every single day. And I don't think I did a good job of truly being where my feet were and enjoying where I was, regardless if it was Little Rock, Arkansas, or Chicago, Illinois. And that's something that I look back on that I wish I would have done a little bit better of, was just enjoy where I was at and enjoy the people that I was playing with. Because I mean, Seattle from top to bottom, the guys over there, the players, they're my homies. They are some good people. And then the second half to that question, I don't know. I just, when I was over there, I just never felt truly like myself. And that's not fully to blame on that organization. You have a choice at the end of the day, and of who you want to be. And I think that my time there was a lot of things that I needed to learn, and I just don't think that when my time with them, I wasn't the role that they had me in, or whatever, what they were trying to teach me I wasn't in the right place to hear it, I don't think.
Let me ask you this. That's some deep stuff right there, bro. And it takes a tough man to even explain that and get that off their chest, because it took me a while to figure it out too, taking those 0 for 4 days. And the boys are going to go do something. I don't want to do something, man. Because of how I played or whatever happened. I'm not saying it was just an example. I'm not saying that's what you did. But my next question to you, you had an 0 for a lot during your early career, right? It went, what was that, 0 for what? I don't remember.
I honestly don't even remember, but I think it was 40 something.
Yeah, so I had the same kind of thing. I was 0 for 31. I was about to break the Cincinnati Red record my second year playing baseball. Dusty Baker brings me in, the manager. He says, dude, they're looking for a new third baseman. I said, holy shit. I said, okay, what's next? He goes, you need to step up. I ended up doing well after that. But there's always that moment in your career where it's eye-opening. And, for you, there was a couple of them. And, how did you deal with something like that? And you got sent down, right, if I recall, and then you had to work your way back up. That's a tough thing to do. Talk to us about that a little bit, and who you talked to, and what you tried to do to get back on your feet there.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a terrible spot, going through that. As a young guy, you get to the major leagues, and I believe that it isn't until you get there where it's kind of an intimidating thing. A lot of the guys you're playing against now, you've seen them on TV, you've heard about the stuff they've done, you hear about the money that they're making. It's just all that stuff adds into, and it creates a lot of individual distractions. And so for me, I remember when I went through that, felt like my whole life was falling from underneath me. And I actually, like, it took me a while, I feel like, but once I got to a place that when I was ready, I started to lean on kind of my family, a psychologist as well, to kind of just better my thought process and the things that I was thinking. And this didn't just happen right after that 0 for 40 or whatever. Like, it took me about 2 years to get to a place where I was like, I gotta get better at this, because I work my tail off in the weight room, in the cage. I mean, you guys know the day-to-day stuff that it takes to be a Major League Baseball player, but I never felt like I put enough work into my thoughts and like kind of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And so, like, all of those little things, like the 0 for 40, I want to say it was 0 for 41, but it could have been 0 for 49. I'll just say that. And then, like, the cooler incident, like, I had a lot of shitty things happen. There's no two ways about it. But, like, I felt like I got to a place where I started to, like, dissect those things from afar, and I started to, like, pick up positive things that came from them. And that didn't come from me. Like, that came from just, like, working with, professional and people in general. And so that was one of the things that, to answer your question of how did I, like, get back up on my feet, I tried to, like, it's all about, like, how you look at things, because stuff's going to happen in life and it sucks. But, like, if you can look at it through a positive lens, I think it makes you a lot happier.
0 for 42. If you were wondering, we just solidified it. It was 0 for 42.
I know. If I said 0 for 41 and it was like 0 for 48, people are like, he's trying to
I like that.
Not make it seem so bad.
I like that. No, you hit it perfectly. And believe me, I know. 1 year I went to 2 different teams and started 0 for 15 with both teams in the big leagues. That's a quick way to get yourself fired. All you did was get yourself traded to a World Series team later on in your career. My question is, which are you closer to? Are you closer to the April Jarred Kelenic, or are you closer to the quote, he had a bad second half, but reality is you're coming back from a broken foot? So which are you closer to, and which one can we count on for next season?
Yeah, so to answer your question, I'm feeling great right now. I feel like I would say I'm closer, better than I was in April. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, I'm gonna hit 15 home runs in the first month of April or anything like that, or have produced better numbers. But when it comes down to just how my body feels and how I'm doing up here and the way that my swing is feeling right now, and kind of the key points that I have in my swing, I think right now is probably is better than the April version of myself, which is honestly encouraging because, like, I had a really good start to the season last year, and I know what I'm capable of doing, and I know that, like, I can do it,
Yeah, you definitely can do it because you proved it. Not just like, well, he's a prospect who has all this. You've done it. You've proven it. And now, go ahead.
No doubt. Like, I have done it, but it's like I'm now it's like, well, you got to do it consistently. Like, I haven't had the true, I don't believe anyway, I haven't had a true, like, I haven't had a season yet that I know I'm capable of doing for 162 games. And, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is now being with an organization that is truly going to allow me to do that. And, like, it's definitely refreshing to have that sense of communication. And, but no, like, I don't want it to go, like, unsaid. Like, I got to go out and earn it too. Like, I got to go out and compete, and I got to, produce. That's the name of the game. And I'm going to go and do that.
And you're in a lineup that already has a bunch of studs. How much does that feel like a weight off? Or does that feel like, I gotta be as good as these guys have been for their entire career, joining a lineup with, 3 to 4 MVP candidate hitters every day that they're playing in that lineup.
Yeah, it's so exciting for me because, like you just said, to be placed in a lineup with, those type of horses is definitely going to be super fun for me because I love to learn, and I'm really interested to kind of just sit back and watch what they do, ask questions along the way. But then also, I think it's important for me to the things that I maybe pick up on whatever they do or say, I kind of implement it into who I am. I'm not going to go there and I'm not going to try to be like Ronald Acuna. I'm not going to go there and try to be like Matt Olson. I'm not going to go there and try to be like, Austin Riley. Like, I'm just not going to do that because then I'm like setting myself up for failure there. And they're their own players, and that's what makes them the best in the game. And I know what I'm capable of doing, but if I can learn from those guys and able to like be the best version of Jarred Kelenic that I can be, then that's right where I want to be. And I know it sounds like so cliche because like I've heard that from so many different people, but like I truly believe that as long as I go into this experience and this journey with this team about like, it's okay to listen and ask questions and pick things from them because they are super successful and they're one of the best to do it. But like, I got to be my own player at the same time. That's what's going to make me great.
So what was that phone call like with Alex Anthopoulos and anyone else that you want to share with Atlanta, Jarred, when you end up getting traded? Because Anthopoulos is one of the best interviews. He's real. He doesn't do the vanilla stuff like some of the GMs do. And he said this was the only prime position player that Atlanta was targeting this offseason. That's how highly they think of you. And obviously they're pretty set at most positions. This was the one spot that they were looking at. So what was that combo like? And what did he say? Because it didn't sound like he said right off the jump, like, oh, we have all these changes. He's like, we just want him to be him here and see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, it was very similar to kind of your interpretation of him. Like, it was just, it was super refreshing because it was just a no bullshit kind of mentality. Like, he just said, here's the situation. Here's how we value you. This is what we think of you, and we look forward to getting to know you more along the way. And we know that you're going to enjoy it here. And I come from a family where it's like a no bullshit mentality too. Like, I'm not afraid of the truth, and I can hear it. Just tell me. And so to hear that right away, it was like, I knew after that first conversation, I was like, this is going to be good for me. Like, this is going to be great.
Dude, that's awesome. All right, I want to take you back. I have a question here that's going to take you back to some history, but then also spin it forward to how the game has actually changed in a really positive way. So you are part of a case study. I'm sure you know about this, right? But young players are getting called up earlier than ever, and there's some dudes that are ready to go in the bigs, and now teams are incentivized to call them up, which is cool, right? Because for me, I didn't play. These guys, the rest of these guys on this show all played. I'm a fan. I want to see the best players play. Chris Bryant was the famous story. People overlook, Jarred, you're crushing it in the minors. I know you hadn't been there for a ton of time, but they throw an extension offer at you. Kevin Mather, the president, comes out and says they would have called you up if you took the extension. Dude, you were a young guy at the time. That's a lot to take on. And it did actually lead to narrative on the union side to eventually say this is getting out of control. They're messing with young kids and putting pressure on them to take money. And so now we did see some rule changes in the game. So I don't know how much you remember from that, but is it at least cool to see that you were part of a system that eventually did change? Just like free agents, right, of the past. So you always hear from the older guys, like, we fought for you guys. You didn't even have to, quote, fight, but you were part of a case study that led to a better game now.
Yeah, so I remember like when all that went down, and it was like I kind of touched about it a little bit, that like there's a lot of individual distractions. And when I first like came into the league, I didn't know right from left. Like, I had so much just bullshit going on in my life. And when you had like the whole extension thing, you had like our president saying one thing, and then, the organization's telling you one thing, but you feel like what they're telling you is not what you truly believe. Like, and then you have to go out there and perform at one of the youngest guys in the league at the time. Like, I just remember calling my parents. I'm like, man, this is not what I thought it was. Like, this is tough. And it sucked. And so to see guys like, like Julio's a prime example. Like, right, he was like probably the first one, I think, once that rule was set in place, that like to incentivize having guys in the league. Like, that dude's a star, and he's gonna be forever, because I mean, that dude, he came onto the scene right when he should have been. He should have been in the big leagues when he was, and he was able to. I mean, granted, he struggled like in the first like month or so or whatever, but everybody does. But then he like was able to just get so comfortable, and it was super cool to see like someone that was kind of on the other side of it, and that's why, like, I think that he's having the success. I mean, granted, the guy's like unbelievably talented, like that's just given. But just seeing the comfortability factor of him coming to an organization and have the opportunity that he did, and then him really take advantage of it, I think it's just like, it's so good for the game, and it's so good for guys like even the minor leagues and guys that are about to probably get, or that are going to get drafted, to like kind of follow in those footsteps and see some of the things that he did that maybe they would have done differently, or what he did that they would like to incorporate, I guess.
Interesting. Now, I want to go back to when you were with the Mariners. So Jerry DiPoto, he's from actually my neck of the woods. I'm from his neck of the woods, however you want to take it. He basically had some comments about 54%, basically saying, that's the percentage that you need to do. I don't know. It was kind of confusing to me at the time. Have you talked to Jerry before and had conversations with him at all?
While I was there?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Jerry, he had called me when I got traded, and the last time I had spoken to him was maybe I saw him once when I was walking off the field after batting practice, and like I just said, "Hey, how you doing?" And we talked a little bit, but no, there isn't much communication there. I didn't talk to him much.
No, listen, that's a simple answer. It's hard, some GMs are all over the place. Some GMs stay behind the scenes. Some don't do much on anything, and we all know all those three types.
I think everybody has their way of doing things, but one thing that I do know is that, like, when I was on here, I wanted to say like how much I appreciate like this podcast, because you guys are former players, and you guys, you have like, you get it, like you guys played, the right questions to ask, like the right emotions that the guys have. And the thing is that like you guys can talk to players, and I've heard former players tell me this, I've heard current players tell me this, like your teammates will never lie to you. They'll tell you how it is. And so it's like, for me, again, this is just me. If I'm a GM or if I am running a team, my biggest thing is like, I would want to pick the brains of the guys that are on my team, because they're not gonna lie to me. They're gonna tell me how it is. And again, I'm not saying that's the right way. I'm not saying that's the wrong way. I'm not saying anything that people do, or I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that you guys get it. You guys understand that, like, in the clubhouse, those guys have your back, and they'll tell you how it is. And I would hope that GMs lean on their players, because I think it can be really valuable.
Well,
granted, it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, no. Hey, Alex Anthopoulos, he's that guy for you. So that's what you're looking for, and you should, as a player, because you're a pro and you want to go out there and do your best. That dude will help you unlock your best. Now, you still talk to your ex-teammates from Seattle, right?
Yeah.
You feel bad for any of them when you hear a comment like 54%, and you were in that locker room, you were hot in April, you broke your foot, you had the emotions, you had everything, you guys grinded right up until the end. You feel bad for any of those guys, in the sense that like maybe they're going to have to band more together as a team and not necessarily look for like outside sources to help them get over that hump, get over that threshold, and win a World Series?
Yeah, well, I kind of keep coming back to it, but like I remember like the comments like the 54% thing, or the like even the like another one I can think of is like the prime Babe Ruth thing. Like the whole goal is to eliminate all of the distractions and BS that comes with playing in the big leagues. So like if you can simplify it for the players as much as you possibly can, I think you're going to get the most out of your guys. And I think that when you have stuff like that happen, or like the comment about the 54%, the prime Babe Ruth, you're bringing unwanted, unneeded attention to the team. And then it kind of sets a form of like maybe pressure, if you want to call it that, because they're like, I mean, granted, we were terrible. Like we were not playing well the first like 2 months of the season. Like we were off to a really bad start, and we had a really talented team. We all knew what we were capable of. We had such a good clubhouse. And when something like that happens, it's like, well, now we're thinking about that. We're not thinking about, okay, like what do I need to do to get better? Like we're thinking about something that's not even baseball related. And, again, who am I to say what should be said and what should be said? Like, I just think that what I feel bad for is for like the guys that are playing with, that unwanted attention. Like I know those guys, like they don't want that. They want to come in and they just want to play baseball. Like every single guy wants to play baseball. Like we all love the game. We don't want to deal with the bullshit questions about what was said.
And Jarred, that's spot on, because I can tell you this, being part of the media, and it's not like, I worked for the league for a long time for their media. It's not like my job is to go in there and be annoying and trying to get some salacious story. But at the same time, the first question every single Seattle Mariner is going to get in spring training, they're going to get asked about those comments. So that's what you're talking about, where they want the first question. If there was nothing to kind of pick on, they want, even their off season's kind of weird, right? Even that, like, that's not the same in terms of an obligation. A media member is either going to be like, hey, what'd you work on? And, kind of the fun, good stuff. But now they all are going to go to them for the first day and be like, 54%, your thoughts. Like it's going to stick. It creates a really negative mantra.
Yeah. And like, you just don't, as a organization, as a team, like that's just not, you're wasting your energy on something that isn't focusing on winning the game and like winning a championship. If everyone's not swimming in the same direction, you're not going to win. Like I know it's not that black and white, but it kind of is. Like if you focus on just doing your job and what do I need to do to be the best baseball player and probably the best teammate that I can be, if you have an entire clubhouse of guys doing that, like those are the teams that win.
No doubt.
Kratz, you're loving this, right? This is what Kratz talks about all the time. He's been in the game for a billion years.
And another thing is, like, just be transparent. Like, I can't stand, like, the bullshit. Like, just be transparent, Just say how it is. Like,
come from the guy that got traded 2 months into signing, man. I mean, shit. He was ready to go right after that. He understands. This is crazy.
Yeah. I just, like, I love transparency, because then it's like it's a respect thing, and us baseball players, as much as like we hate to like admit it, we understand that it's a business, but at the same time, like you have like there's so many like good, well-rounded dudes that can handle that stuff, and I think it would just make the game so much easier if it was just transparent,
That's why some of the older managers have become in vogue again, because they're more real, and they'll just sit you in the office and be like, here's the deal, dude. I'm only going to platoon you. Or, hey, you're not hitting well right now, so I got to sit you, versus we'll see. And then you show up and you get a surprise in the lineup. Right, Kratz? I mean, that's why some of these guys, he's about to join one here too, right? Nothing to do with the past teams, but I'm saying like Brian Snitker was in the minor leagues for a long time, and he told it like it is to the minor league dudes. And then he's just chilling, telling you what's up, right? In the major league club now.
I think go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just think that like, I was like reading this book before, and they talk about how just consistency and transparency is like, as a parent, is like one of the most like important traits to have. And so like, if you look at a manager or a head coach of a team, like you're a parent of 26 however many guys, right? It doesn't even matter the sport. You're setting the example. You're setting the bar, everything. And so if you are just consistent every single day when you show up to the ballpark, you're transparent, the guys know what they're going to get every single day. It's the same schedule every single day. It's a new city every 3 days. It's the same game. But when you have the inconsistency and the lack of transparency, it creates a lot of anxiety and stress for the guys. And then you're not getting the most out of your players. And so it makes it that much harder to perform. And like you guys know, like the game is tough. It is so tough. So like it's just being real.
Yeah, I love it, dude. And it needs to be talked about more. And we talk about it a lot. So let's finish with this on the Braves side. Okay. So you're going to play in the outfield with Acuna. Chris Sale just got traded to the team. We know all the big names. Who are you most excited to meet or say hi to, have a dinner with, spend some time in the clubhouse? Or, I know you don't want to necessarily pick favorites. Just somebody you're curious to have a conversation with that you've been looking forward to talking to.
Pick favorites. You can pick favorites. It's okay.
Be real. It's not like you're going to offend Albies if you're like, I want to talk to Acuna first,
Don't say Chipper Jones
no,
either. Go ahead.
I'm really looking forward to being teammates with Matt Olson. I've had some conversations with him at first base when he was in Oakland, and even when he was with the Braves, we played him last year. And I only know him like to that extent. I haven't gone out to dinner or anything like that, but I've heard nothing but great things. He is one of the best in the game, and I'm really looking forward to lacing up the cleats and being on the same field as that guy.
I like that. Yeah, that dude's a keeper. And they knew that really early on. Well, Jarred, thanks for the praise for the show. Obviously, we've been looking forward to having you for a while. This was kind of perfect time and getting settled in with the new squad here in the off season. So we appreciate you. And I'll say this, and I'm sure Kratz will probably follow what I'm saying, but when you come on and you talk like you just did, the way you do for 20 minutes, it relates with fans too. And, I know obviously we don't take up anyone's time too much. We talk to like a guy for maybe a few times a year. It helps for people to resonate, probably change someone's perspective. That's a young player, right? Kratz, you say this better than I do, but you know what I'm talking about.
Just be real, dude. You hit it so, you articulated it so well. Just be real. And sometimes being real is different. My real is different than your real, but I didn't go through the things that you went through. I lived close to Waukesha. I lived out in Wisconsin. That's about as close as we got to a connection, but you're in the big leagues at 20, 21 years old. Like we don't all have connections, but you're exactly right that you need to be real in baseball, because that's what I was fortunate to be able to do for 19 years. But I think it's just in life. You're exactly right. Like, go out, be who you are, and it might rub some people the wrong way. But ultimately, if you have the right heart out there, you're going to be the best teammate, best son, best husband, best brother, whatever it is. And I love that. I love everything you said.
Yeah. Again, I just want to say last thing before we close it out is, like, I genuinely do appreciate what you guys do, being like baseball guys and like actually talking to people. Like, you guys know when you talk to, when someone puts a microphone in your face or sits down, like your guard kind of goes up, like, like what could I say? Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. But like, I feel like, being on here for like 20 minutes, whatever it was, like there was definitely like a comfortability side because you guys like get it. And like, that's why I think it's doing so well. So
Thank you, dude.
Thanks, man.
And I know a bunch of other guys do too. So like I'm speaking for a bunch, not just me.
I gotta also say, I meant to say this at the beginning, dude. Big flex by you on the whole background too. By the way. Like,
yeah,
dude, I know.
Got the feng shui.
I opened my camera and it's like wide view, and I'm like, oh Jesus. So then but I didn't want to be this close either.
Hey, big flex. Hey, flex has happened.
Perfect. Yeah,
flex has happened.
Yeah.
Humble flex.
It wasn't meant for that.
Hey,
okay.
Flaherty was in the Lambo or something.
He was
last
in the
week with
Lambo.
us. Yeah.
He was trying to cover it up.
It's awesome. Jarred, great. Appreciate you again, dude. Keep crushing it this offseason. We'll see you in spring training. All right, man?
Sound good, guys. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. Jarred Kelenic joining us of the Atlanta Braves. really good stuff there.
Solid.
That was awesome.
Solid.
Yeah. And just obviously, that's why we're doing this every single day and bringing on players every single day and just chilling, I know Kratz lights up because when we spoke about this before it started, he's like referring to the conversations like this, right? With Kelenic.
Totally. And it's a guy that, unless you're in Seattle, and I don't know, he even kind of said it, like that microphone goes in front of your face and you're like, yes, I really enjoyed playing. I didn't hit the ball very well today. You saw emotion out of this guy after he broke his foot, the day after he kicked the cooler, and he's crying in the dugout. And you're going to get some negative feedback. You're going to get some, this and that. But he's just being honest. And this is the kind of stuff that is what I think this show and this sport needs. Not just this show. This show is just a conduit. It's just a avenue that I hope players can use, because we're all humans. We're all humans. Like Corbin Burnes, he likes fishing. He hangs out with Hader. Kelenic was a 21-year-old that had been traded from the organization that drafted him 3 months before, and he's in the big leagues, and he's being honest. Like, you know what? It's kind of tough to learn when you're up in the big leagues, but that's what I had to do. I love it.
Picked up a lot of fans too. Like I was saying, Top Father, in the chat, everyone's like, love this guy, and I'm sure you'll see it afterward too. They're like, damn, this dude's cool, right? Like I wish Seattle fans, I wish I got to know him more, right?
So,
hey,
like I said, solid dude,
yeah.
Articulate, and he gets it, man. At a young age, that's A+ for him.
Yeah. I mean, hey, when I did like the cookie cutter interviews sometimes, and the players would even tell me afterward, I'm not going to say anything. And I was crumbling inside. So I feel better now. I feel liberated. A little inside my life. Not that anyone cares, but let's slap hands. Nice and simple today. Just got two things. I'll tell you the guest list, and we do Kratz hats first. So Kratz hats, what do you got? And Todd Father, there's a new edition of Kratz hats, so pay attention.
Oh,
Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Scranton Wilkes-Barre. I'm not actually 100% sure when we wore these hats. I know it was a special night, but it matched the jerseys. But I say this a decent amount, but this hat gets me a lot of compliments. I'm not trying to sway your grading, which you're going to find out, Todd, but that gets me a lot of compliments.
Sugar. So, Todd, this is a new thing. It just started a few days ago by accident, but fans are loving it, and they requested it. So I said, sure, why not? So grade the hat. We're going to do this every day. AJ will do it, but when you're on, you're doing it. Or both of you.
Out of a 10.
So no, we're doing, and this is still up for debate. We're doing the school grades, just like the kiddos. So A, B, C, D, F. You can do a plus or minus if you want to get fancy, but what do you got?
I mean, I like the black and white. You can't go wrong with that. If you got a guy with a SW or B in their name, they're going to rock that thing out. So I'm going to give it a B+.
Nice. Okay. That's solid.
Honest.
Yeah. That sounds like me in high school. That'll work. This one's an A+, by the way. FoulTerritoryShop.com for the hats, the shirts, the sweatshirts, the whole deal. And on the way out here, guest list for tomorrow, Brendan Donovan of the St. Louis Cardinals and Austin Slater of the San Francisco Giants, both joining us. Of course, we'll talk to a writer or insider personality, something like that too. Kipnis is back with us, Kratz, tomorrow, and Todd Father's going to rest up because he's got Friday with us and a pretty busy week next week. I'm invading. I'm coming over, dude. I got a red eye tomorrow, so
get ready. I will mute you when you get over here. Bye bye. Come again. Oh no, I'm muted and I'm out.
Everyone, that's good stuff. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.